Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Xiaolin Perspectives, and today we're going to be discussing episode 29 of Xiaolin Showdown, Screams of the Siren. This episode actually opens with the Xiaolin Showdown already in progress, as we see Jack Spicer and Omi competing to see who gets this new Shengang Wu called the Gills of Hamachi. Basically this sweet little, neck brace, I think, that when worn by someone allows them to breathe underwater by transforming them into a fish person. And basically the challenge has them ice skating on several glaciers to see who can get to it first, with Omi wagering the Orb of Tournami and Jack Spicer wagering the Jet Butsu. And well, turns out Jack Spicer's kind of whooping Omi's ass because he had figure skating lessons when he was younger, and apparently this is the one time that he can finally use them. As such, it looks like he's about to get the Gills of Hamachi, with Omi falling flat on his face. However, the gills are located at the top of a glacier, and while Jack Spicer is climbing the glacier with the Jet Butsu, Omi is able to turn the tide as he manages to put a crack in the glacier, and using the Orb of Tournami combined with his water element, he's able to basically destabilize the glacier enough that before Jack Spicer can lay claim to the gills, he's knocked off. As such, this gives Omi enough time to climb up the glacier ahead of Jack, and thus by grabbing the Gills of Hamachi, he wins the showdown, winning both them and the Jet Butsu. As such, bad guys are left packing. Once again, Wuya chews Jack out because he lost into more Shengang Wu. However, before the Xiaolin monks can leave, basking in their newfound victory, they spot something in the water that catches their attention. A girl who seems to be completely frozen from the waist down. After Raimundo kind of gets a bit of after Raimundo kind of gets pushed into the water, he goes to try and rescue this girl, and he was pushed in because he tried volunteering clay for it. And the girl thanks Raimundo for saving her, and to try and help her, get out of her dire straits, Raimundo ends up breaking the ice around her legs. Only she don't have legs. She has a fish tail. Yep, it turns out this girl is a mermaid, and she introduces herself as Dyrus, and she is, of course, thankful to the Xiaolin monks because apparently she was stuck in that glacier that Omi shattered. And so, all of the Xiaolin monks, save Kimiko, are immediately smitten with her because she's just so gosh darn purty. And apparently they are all thinking with their dicks. However, Dyrus was not the only one located within that glacier, as alongside her was freed this big burly guy with shaggy hair, a shaggy beard, with what looks like dark clothes, a big muscular physique, and several weapons, and he's got an attitude problem. And the instant he spots Dyrus, he immediately tries to attack her. As thankfully, the Xiaolin monks are able to defend Dyrus utilizing their Shengang Wu, and thus he's sent packing, though Jack Spicer ends up saving him and brings him back to his base. And it's also here where I need to address something about this episode. So, apparently there were a handful of episodes in Season 2 of Xiaolin Showdown that were not aired in the right order. For the most part, it's not noticeable. You can still go through the show for the most part without actually noticing, except in this episode. As, remember how I said last week that Jack Spicer wound up running away with his tail between his legs with only the glove of Jisaku on him? Well, in this episode, the Xiaolin monks have the glove of Jisaku, which kind of tells me this episode takes place later in the series, or earlier if the Xiaolin monks have the glove before that. I don't know. Point is, clearly this is the wrong place to have this episode. But continuity errors aside, the Xiaolin monks ended volunteering to take Dyrus back with them, and, well, she says that she can't really go with them since, as a mermaid, she can't leave the water, but they get around it by flooding Dojo's mouth and having Dyrus ride in there, with them giving Dyrus the Orb of Tournami so that she can keep Dojo's mouth, full. And as such, it's basically through here that Dyrus begins explaining her backstory and her relationship to the big burly guy, claiming that his name is Clofang. And apparently a long time ago, Clofang hunted Dyrus, and at some point he managed to corner Dyrus in this big ice cave. But before he could land a killing blow, the entire cavern they were in wound up caving away and buried the two. And as a result, they were both frozen in ice and have been stuck there for I don't know how many years. And it's like I said, it's only thanks to Omi breaking the glacier in this episode that they're finally set free. Although I have to admit, she actually tells them this before they go back to the Xiaolin Temple, but it's not mentioning it here because of ease. In the meantime, back with Clofang, he is brought like I said, he's brought back to Jack Spicer's base, and Wuya and Jack Spicer are actually a little impressed with him and his menagerie of weapons. And Jack Spicer, of course, just thinks, oh man, this guy's cool, we're gonna have so much Shengang Wu together. But Clofang makes it clear that he is not interested in Shen Gong Wu. He only wants Dyrus, and he will do whatever it takes to get his hands on her. And Jack, trying to get the big ugly guy's respect, says that he may know where Dyrus is. As such, a plan is formed for Jack and Clofang to attack the Xiaolin Temple. But in the meantime, back at said Xiaolin Temple, it seems that Dyrus is actually doing well for herself, as she's basically set up shop in the temple fountain, and yeah, all the male Xiaolin monks are just falling head over heels for her and doing literally whatever she wants, which Kimiko rolls her eyes at, but Dyrus managed to get on Kimiko's good side too, as she gives her tips on how to get guys to do what she wants, which Kimiko utilizes by feigning weakness and sadness in order to trick Omi into doing her chores. So Dyrus manages to cozy up to literally all 4 of the Xiaolin monks. However, that evening, as all the Xiaolin monks are out doing their own thing, well, they end up running into each other. Mostly because their own thing all involved pampering Dyrus so that she'd like them more. However, as they're all arguing over who gets to give Dyrus the most attention, that's when Jack Spicer and Clofang attack, with Jack Spicer doing an all-out attack in order to distract the Xiaolin monks, while Clofang will find Iris and finish her off. Thankfully, maybe, Kimiko volunteers to deal with Jack Spicer's robots, while all the guys just argue over who's gonna be the one to go save Dyrus, and so they all try to run to their fountain and try and cut off Clofang. Unfortunately, Clofang's weapons are kind of a match for them, as he manages to, to pretty much just tie up or trap each of the male Xiaolin monks until he manages to get to the fountain where Dyrus is. Unfortunately, Dyrus is gone, which confuses everyone because she said that she's not supposed to be able to leave the water. Well, it turns out that Dyrus did leave certain prints behind her, as Clofang points to various water splashes that look like someone left the fountain. And once the water splashes dry up, we see what look like claw marks making their way further into the temple. Yeah, it turns out that Dyrus isn't exactly the pretty, sweet, and kind individual that she made herself out to be. In reality, she's a monster, both figuratively and literally. And Clofang? Yeah, it turns out he's a good guy. And because, yeah, we learn this later, but it turns out Dyrus is fucking insane. She wants to drown the whole world and basically rule it from underwater. And Clofang was hunting her, but it wasn't because he hated mermaids or was racist against them. No, it's just that Dyrus was fucking evil, and he knew that if she had her way, then all of humanity would be fucked. So he wanted to stop her, and most likely it was when he had her cornered that resulted in them both being buried under snow and frozen. But yeah, when Jack Spicer learns that the mermaid was actually the bad guy and Clofang was really the good guy, it kind of sends him into a bit of an existential crisis as he leaves the Xiaolin Temple, because he realized that the guy he was looking up to was really one of the good guys. Unfortunately though, as the Xiaolin monks bring Clofang back to, I guess, their sitting area where he explains everything, Dojo comes in and tells everybody that they've been robbed. As it turns out, Dyrus was busy while everyone's backs were turned, as she managed to sneak into the Xiaolin vault, or the Xiaolin monk's vault, and wound up stealing 3 of their Shen Gong Wu, specifically the Tunnel Armadillo, the Golden Tiger Claws, and the Fist of Tebigong. Why? Because the Xiaolin monks are stupid. Yeah, it turns out that in their love-struck states, they all did everything that Dyrus wanted, including Clay telling her where the vault was, Raimundo filling up the Tunnel Armadillo with water, getting Kimiko to abandon her post by convincing some random guy to do it, which they didn't do because Dyrus told them to do something else, and Omi, he managed to get him to tell him all the details that she would need to destabilize the Earth's core and flood the world, and which Shen Gong Wu she would need in order to do that, with Omi claiming that he only told her because he thought it was just idle chit-chat. Yeah, Clofang begins wondering if these guys are really heroes. Either way, though, while the Xiaolin monks realize they've been had, they at least think that they have some solace, because even with all those Shen Gong Wu, she can't really the Earth's core is a mite too hot for someone like Dyrus. So even if she did try to use the Tunnel Armadillo to get close, she'd be burned to a crisp before she could destabilize the thing. Unfortunately, though, coincidence of all coincidences, a new Shengongu has revealed itself, and Dojo told Dyrus all about it. Basically, this Shengongu is called the Black Beetle. This big black scarab that, when dawned by someone, will coat them in basically in a suit of armor that's completely heat resistant. So, with the power of the Black Beetle, Dyrus could go right to the Earth's core and not be bothered by the heat. Mind you, in earlier episodes of the series, Dyrus seemed to be... In earlier episodes of the series, Omi was able to get to the Earth's core, and he was fine. But hey, he had the serpent's tail, so maybe that gave him some mystical protection or whatever. I don't know. It just seems weird that they're bringing up how hot the Earth's core is now, when literally twice they went to the center of the Earth and no one got burned up. But whatever. Xiaolin monks realized they gotta go stop Dyrus. More so because they realized they all fucked up, and while Clofang wants to go alone, they want to at least make up for their mistakes. As such, Dojo brings them all to where the Black Beetle is, which it turns out is in the Arctic Ocean. As such, Omi uses the gills of Hamachi to go underwater and find where the Black Beetle is. And at first, it seems like an easy grab, as it's located within a sunken pirate ship. But before Omi can make a grab for it, Dyrus appears and begins just putting on the cutesy eyes as quickly as possible, and Omi, being stupid, just falls for it hook, line, and sinker. No pun intended. And it allows Dyrus to get close enough to just rip the gills of Hamachi off of him, while they're both still underwater. As such, with Omi just basically flailing for air, she grabs the Black Beetle and just runs, with Omi basically gasping for air and powerless to stop her. Thankfully, the Xiaolin monks manage to follow Omi as they use the Silver Manta Ray to go underwater and well, again, pun not intended, fish him out. As such, they see Dyrus closing in on where she parked the tunnel armadillo, and once again, Clofang just is chomping at the bit to go after her, but once again, Omi says that he has to make up for his mistake. As such, he used the serpent's tail to go out into the water to confront Dyrus, and he managed to get the gills of Hamachi back so that he can actually duke it out with her underwater on equal terms. However, in the midst of their struggling, Omi accidentally starts up the tunnel armadillo, which still has all the Shengongu that Dyrus stole inside it, which means that while the two of them are fighting, the tunnel armadillo is just kind of driving away. In the meantime, the Xiaolin monks can't really do any backup because Jack Spicer has once again arrived on the scene, and he's decided to help Dyrus. Why? Because she's quirky. Yeah, he's an idiot too. Point is, he's helping Dyrus. Thankfully, with a creative use of the glove of Jisaku and the reversing mirror, they're able to get Jack Spicer out of the way, as he sent Sharkbots after them, and those two Shengongu sent them right back at him. But as that's going on, Omi and Dyrus chase after the tunnel armadillo, and they manage to grab a hold of it as it manages to get to the surface and right into the middle of an ice cavern. However, when it surfaces, it causes all the Shengongu inside it to come falling out, including the Black Beetle. And so as Omi sees it floating in the water, he makes a grab for it, just as Dyrus does. And so, Omi challenges the mermaid to a Xiaolin showdown, with Omi wagering the gills of Hamachi and Dyrus wagering the fist of Tebigong. And the challenge? It's steal the Wu. Whichever opponent can steal the other's Shengong Wu, it will be declared the victor and win the spoils. And to add a bit of extra oomph to the battle, Omi says that the showdown must be held on dry land. However, when Clofang hears this, he tells Omi that was a very bad idea. Because you see, remember those claw marks that we saw in the Xiaolin Temple? That's a kind of a symptomatic of Dyrus' true form, and she assumes that form every time she's out of the water. And as Clofang once admitted, apparently her true form is not something you want to see at any time in your life. And we finally do see it as Dyrus manages to climb out of the water, and she mutates into a giant fish creature. It's not a pretty picture, but basically it's too late to back down now, and so Xiaolin Showdown is called, and I'll admit, this Xiaolin Showdown doesn't really feel as creatively designed as the other ones. It literally, the ice cavern they're in just gets slightly bigger. It's not really that impressive. And unfortunately, Omi doesn't fare well from the get-go, as Dyrus is big now, and the fist of Tebigong, I guess, grew to fit her hand, and she just starts toying with Omi as she manages to flick him aside, which does get him away from the gills of Hamachi, but Dyrus, being a predator, as Clofang says, she wants to play with her food, so she doesn't want to net a victory just yet. As such, Omi manages to get back to the gills and activates them, but the thing is, the gills are only best used if they're being used underwater, because when Omi turns into a fish person thanks to the gills, he finds that he starts literally floundering on dry air. So, that's not exactly helping. As such, Dyrus does almost get a win as she picks up Omi and reaches for the gills. But the Omi ends up seeing an opportunity as when Dyrus is playing with him, she managed to break a hole in the ice and lead to water. As such, Omi rips off the gills and using his water element, he's able to make a stream of water and fling it right into Dyrus, which it's basically enough water that it's able to revert her back to her humanish mermaid form, and thus while she's distracted by the water getting splashed in her face, it allows Omi to get in close and steal the Fist of Tebigong, basically winning him the showdown. As such, Omi meets up with the other Xiaolin monks and Clofang, and they're all congratulating Omi for his job well done. But it turns out Dyrus is a bit of a sore loser as she mutates back into her monster form and starts going on a rampage, with Clofang immediately going on the offensive and attacking her. However, in the midst of their battle, once again, the cavern starts caving in. And while Omi wants to help Clofang, he tells Omi that he and the other Xiaolin monks have to go, that this was probably how it was always going to end. And as such, the other Xiaolin monks make a run for it, and just as it was before, Clofang and Dyrus end up getting buried under the snow and are once more frozen in a block of ice where others may find them in I don't know how many years. So yeah, the good guys have won, but the cycle goes on. In the meantime, the episode ends, so we come back to Jack Spicer and what's left of his ship, and he realizes he's kind of dead in the water, both figuratively and literally, as he has no way to get home. Thankfully, the Xiaolin monks, being the nice guys they are, do offer him a ride back, but they're gonna be cheeky about it as they tie him to a lasso, and while they are gonna fly him back to his house, well, he's not gonna be riding along with them as they're taking the silver manta ray, and he's basically just hanging out from behind them via the lasso. So yeah, they're just gonna revel in torturing this kid, which I admit it's kind of amusing, but eh. So yeah, that was Screams of the Siren. Honestly, I think it's a pretty good episode. When it comes down to it, it feels like a filler episode, but as filler episodes go, it's enjoyable in that regard. I can't really think of a big moral this episode really had, aside from don't judge a book by its cover. As like the episode showcased, Dyrus, despite being the pretty face, was the actual villain, while Clofang, despite being the big gruff and serious guy, was ultimately the hero. But honestly, that's been done many times before, and I don't think this episode really did anything different from that. Although I do kind of like how Clofang is almost obsessed with going after Dyrus, which makes sense. If she's a monster bent on flooding the world, I think he'd be desperate to try and take her down. And he's probably the only man that's immune to her charms, because even when the Xiaolin monks learn that she's a bad guy, they still keep falling for her tricks. Seriously, all she has to do is act all sweet and nice, and Omi just buys it. He doesn't ask questions. It's literally just, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you. And of course I didn't believe the big angry man. I know you're really good. And the thing is, it gets so stupid that even Dyrus has a laugh at it. Seriously, while she and Omi are grappling over the stash of woo she stole and the black beetle, she puts on the waterworks again, and when Omi apologizes, she just smacks him again and says, I can't believe you keep falling for that. It's like, yeah, like seriously, does your dick get that hard for the mermaid that you're just willing to push all sane thoughts out? Why, man? Why? I don't understand it. It's just stupid, I admit. It's really a dumb gag, and the level of details that the Xiaolin monks give Dyrus in order for her to achieve her plan is almost moronic. There's only so much a pretty face can get you, I mean. Do they just think that she's all innocent? Like, when does common sense come in, is what I'm saying. Because the thing is, yeah, there are some guys that will fall for a pretty face hook, line, and sinker. Again, no pun intended. But there's gotta be some freaking logic here. Is this like the same? Is this the same? Are these the same? Are they all holding the idiot stick here? Is it the same idiot stick as in the chameleon episode? And they all just turn out their common sense? I don't know. It just feels weird to me, and it does kind of annoy me as the episode goes on. It's cute for a laugh in the beginning, but the more they let Dyrus get away with stuff, the more I'm like, seriously, start thinking with this head and not the other one. It's just weird. It's just weird and kind of annoying. But I will still give credit where it's due. I do like Dyrus as a villain. Again, it's clear that it's kind of clear even before the reveal that Dyrus is more than just a pretty face. As while she acts all kind and sweet, you can tell that to a degree she's putting on an act. As when the Xiaolin monks offer to bring her back to the temple, she's like, "Oh, I can't leave the water. It's a mermaid thing." It's like the right kind of bad acting that you can tell she's putting on a show. And it's kind of confirmed when she talks with Kimiko that she's intentionally acting all cutesy wootsy just to try and get the guys to do things for her. But with that said, we are also shown that she can be a clever manipulator, as while Kimiko does not fall for her shtick, she is able to get in Kimiko's good side by essentially teaching her these exact same tricks. So so I do kind of like that. It shows that Dyrus isn't just a one-trick pony. It's just that she knows how to get people to do what she wants. And the only person that seems immune to that is probably Clofang, who I'm assuming he's probably seen stuff like Dyrus before, and thus he's able to get away with it. Plus, as we see at the end of the episode, he's missing an eye as we see what looks like claw marks over this eye, which he had covered up for most of the episode thanks to his hair. So you could argue that maybe he did make the mistake of getting close to Dyrus at one point, and she basically clawed at his eye, and ever since he's learned, don't trust this pretty face, she is nothing but trouble. So maybe that's why he's immune. I don't know. But point is, he's probably the only person who is. But anyway, back to my thoughts on Dyrus. Point is, I do like her as a villain. Again, it still plays on the whole pretty face is actually evil thing, but as a villain, I think she's endearing enough. She's smart, creative, and it is kind of fun to see her still be able to play it up as the episode goes along, and even laugh at how she keeps getting away with it. It's actually pretty nice and fun, and when you actually see her go into her full monster form, it's a nice way of figuratively and literally showcasing what she really is underneath, and so I dig it. It's really nice. Same goes for Clofang, too. Despite the fact that he is very serious and one note about wanting to kill Dyrus, he has a valid excuse for that. Like I said, the guy is a hunter, and based on that, again, the claw marks and all that, he probably knows just how big of a threat Dyrus is. And when it comes down to it, he knows that if this bitch is left idle long enough, she will start getting people to do what she wants, and it will come back, and it will hurt everyone in the long run. So he knows that if he wants to save the world, he's got to kill her as quickly as possible. Hence why he's probably just as laser focused on her as he is. It's probably why he puts up with Jack Spicer when he was briefly with him. It's why he still explains everything to the Xiaolin monks, and he basically wants to abandon them and to try and hunt down Dyrus, only giving them the benefit of the doubt because they are trying to earnestly put their best foot forward and make up for all the boneheaded mistakes they made in order to try and help her. Overall, I think it's Again, I do like that, and by the end, you do see that he is a noble soul. He may be gruff and angry, but he is friendly when he needs to be. During the showdown, he actually does exchange some pleasantries with Clay about how Dyrus didn't just grab the gills when she had the chance. And when Omi ends up winning the showdown, he does at least give Omi a little pat on the back, metaphorically speaking, about winning it. And in the end of the episode, when he ends up getting frozen again alongside Dyrus, he basically just goes out with a smile on his face because he may be being frozen too, but he's at least taken this monster down with him, and he wouldn't have it any other way. So again, I do like that. He's been one note in his ambitions, but overall, I think he's charming enough, so I dig it. Otherwise, though, I think I think what ultimately makes the episode fun for me is just again the action, this new set of Woo in place, the interactions with Dyrus and Clofang, and overall, and the showdown, while kind of basic in terms of showdowns it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. It was actually kind of fun to see Dyrus's same coy manipulative personality kind of in play in her full monster form, as even during the showdown she didn't net a win when she could have, just because she wanted to toy with Omi some more, which actually kind of seems fitting, as like Clofang said, she likes to play with her food, and well, we kind of saw that throughout the episode with her twisting people around her fingers, so it's kind of amusing. And on top of that, there's also the new Shengon Wu we have in the episode, the Gills of Amachi and the Black Beetle. The Black Beetle Again, it's kind of a basic Shengong Wu. It's just a suit of armor that can make that's extremely heat resistant. That's cool, but kind of basic in terms of Shengong Wu. Though it does win some brownie points for being able to resist heat so much that one can literally walk into the Earth's core without being burned. But likewise, I think my favorite of the new Wu showcase in this episode are the gills of Amachi. As while they are somewhat situational, they're at least a lot more versatile because of the fact that they can allow someone to breathe underwater. And it's not just one set of water; it's all water. As Omi uses the gills to swim in the Arctic Ocean without any issue, even being able to talk and withstand the exceedingly cold temperatures, which I dig. I like that. Otherwise, though, I think the episode is fine. I do like I think, like I said, the episode I think is just pretty good. It does have some annoying bits with how stupid some of the main characters are when it comes to Dyrus. Again, I understand horny for the pretty girl, but there's got to be a point when you start using your brain, especially when you're these guys. And when it comes, but I will give credit that I do like the build up to the reveal. I like the beginning, where they do sort of pull the wool over your eyes, as while Dyrus is clearly putting on an act. You can see that Clofang is obsessed to the nth degree, so it does lend credence to the whole he's the bad guy and Dyrus is the victim whole thing. And the reveal around the end of the first act, where that Dyrus is actually a monster, I think is handled pretty well, especially when we learn the true story. And in the third act, when she is just going full villain, it's still fun to see her in action. And the ultimate finale with her and Clofang, I think is earned and fun. Again, it's not perfect. It's not perfect. Again, her plan relies on a lot of people just being stupid and idiotic, and that does annoy me, honestly. But overall, I do think it's still still think it's a pretty good episode. Just pretty good. Not great, but enjoyable in its own regards. So, yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I will hopefully see you next week, where we see another villain of the week make a comeback. So till then, I hope you have a good night, and take care.